Welcome to Healthy Lifestyle with Lorianne. I am Lorianne Casdia. Our goal here at Healthy Lifestyle is to inspire, educate, and empower you to fulfill a healthy emotional, spiritual, and physical life so you can feel empowered to live the life you have always wanted and dreamed. Welcome to the show. So happy to be here. I am a #1 international best-selling author, life and business transformational success coach, and I help others illuminate, empower, and educate others to find and embrace their life purpose, live their highest vision, and forge a strong foundation to soar to success. For more information, please visit us at ldcstrategies.com or LoriAnnCasdia.com. Today on the show, we have Cori Solomon Santone. She is a dreamer and unshakable optimism and passion for living life to its fullest. She's a soul sister with me. She is also an author, one of my sister authors of Women Who Dream. She is a founder and CEO of Center Stage Solution. It's a firm dedicated to supporting executives, women, and youth overcoming barriers that stand in the way of achieving the life, results, and relationships they truly want. She uses her unique skill set, intuition, and humor to guide others through a collaborative problem-solving process that has allowed thousands to achieve success and take center stage. Her expertise comes from 23 years of successful leadership roles in the non-for-profit, educational, business, and arts sectors, where she saved and served as a CEO, CFO of a regional nonprofit arts education organization, charter school founder, residential camp director, sales director, certified teacher, and school administrator. And Cori has raised millions of dollars, launched dozens of programs, and changed the lives of thousands of people over the past several decades. I am so pleased to have Cori on the show today. Cori, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
So happy to have you. I'm so excited to talk about, Center Stage Solutions. You have a website, centerstagesolutions.com. I think that's really is so exciting what you do. Let's just talk for a moment, as my listeners are used to me talking about Women Who Dream. I just absolutely loved your chapter, Take Your Center Stage. Can you give us a little idea of what that was about, how you came about writing that chapter?
Sure. So I love that we're in this book together. I also loved your chapter. And so what I would say my chapter really was this wonderful process of me going through my life and realizing all of these themes where I reinvent my life and had to restart for lots of reasons and, took big risks and, realized that I felt really safe to take those big risks because my parents really set me up to believe that, I was invincible when I was young and that I could really try anything and do anything if I just, put my mind to it. And so I did. And, as soon as life throws you, big curveballs, I had to try to navigate through those. And so the story is really my life and some of those big hurdles and this process of, taking big new risks and then how those panned out and then really, got me to this place where I'm at. And kind of a theme behind it, and that's where this Take Center Stage is about, is that I loved theater. I was always really involved as a young person in theater and drama activities, and I realized how much it taught me about, how to, improv in life and adapt and, reimagine yourself and, new characters and relating to other people in your life and how you have to, collaborate and work with other people and realize your environment and your setting and where you're at on the stage and so forth. And so it really took a theme through the chapter and really trying to promote to other women and young women that it's worth it to take big risks. And it doesn't mean it will be easy. It actually is quite the opposite. Is that as soon as you step into center stage and you put a big spotlight on yourself, it will bring lots of challenges, lots of attention, lots of stress potentially. But we have to do that, or
that's how we grow, right?
Right. And
Yeah.
So if you don't ever take those risks or step into that spotlight, you're never going to experience all of the magic that your life really could be.
Yeah.
Story.
And we're sisters on so many levels because I was all in the theater as well, and loved performing arts. Both of my parents were musicians, so I was always around the arts and have a major love for the arts. But taking center stage on figuratively and literally is exactly what you did in your life. And I love the fact that you took your challenges and you looked at it as like, all right, let's step up and see where this is going, because those are transformational moments, aren't they?
Well, for sure, right? And so it's really trying to, every time there's this big challenge in your life, thinking of it as an opportunity to try to do something new with your story and your life. And it's leaning into that instead of letting it, take over and take you into a direction that you don't want to be in. And so that, I hope people get that out of the chapter of like just this idea of leaning in and taking big risks and looking at barriers as opportunities.
Yeah, because from our greatest tragedies, from our greatest challenge has the greatest opportunity for change, right? And if we are uncomfortable, I've actually become very comfortable being uncomfortable. I'm no longer comfortable being comfortable. I'm much more
right.
comfortable being uncomfortable. And somebody's probably sitting there scratching their head going, what did she just say? But it's really true. I really prefer being in an uncomfortable position because I know I'm growing. I know I'm learning. I know I'm becoming the next version of myself. When we're in a comfy couch, we're just being, and that's okay. Sometimes it's okay to just be.
Yeah, no, I love that you just put it that way. I actually just had this conversation with my 17-year-old stepdaughter who, she was recognizing that she likes change. And she was like, and when I don't feel that change, I create it. And, we were talking through the idea of like creating it in a positive way or creating it in a negative way. But I feel the same way. I think the reality is when we get static and we get comfortable, sometimes we get into habits or we get, it's like this dull of your light that you've got to shine. But when you're pushing yourself or trying new things or you're changing, there's such energy around that it's infectious to the people around you. People can feel that from you. And it's so powerful,
yeah.
Right? It's movement. It's an exciting time in your life, but sometimes we have to create that, and sometimes life circumstances create that.
Well, if we're paying attention to what universe, God source is sending us the messages, and they do. So we get these messages. If we're paying attention, they take care of it for us. They move us along, move along. I always liken it to a wave in water, right? So if you look at a wave in an ocean, it just has this automatic rhythm to it, but then all of a sudden the tide changes, and then it has this automatic rhythm in a different direction. And those are the things that allow you to see the changes and the opportunities that lay in front of you, and then you get to choose. So to me, it's always, and it goes back to my chapter of two choices. You always have two choices. You can stay stuck or you can get unstuck. You can go, you can stop, you can go forward, you could go backwards. There's always two choices. And there's always a choice. You always have a choice. Nobody can make you do anything. You always have a choice. When someone says, I don't have a choice, I used to say that a lot. I don't have a choice. I have to do that. No, I did have a choice. I just chose at that time the easier way, the more passive way, the one that created less bumps at the time, but ultimately, in the long run, created much more static in my life than I really needed. Ever happened to you?
Oh yeah, I think I loved your metaphor of the ocean. I'm certainly a beach girl, so that speaks to me. But I think that is exactly what happens to us. And the reality is, it's so intentional, right? Like that you have these choices and that you can make them. And I agree. That's what I was trying to use in my coaching. And, it's this idea that when I say take your center stage or step into it, it's the idea that you have control over your entire narrative. You have control over your whole story. And as soon as you start, we act like we're not the ones making the choices and it's happening to us, then we stop leading our story.
Right.
And then you're letting other people, dictate what your life is looking and feeling like. And I think this is where I love working with youth and, girls in middle and high school, because they often feel like they have very little control over the things happening to them because they have to follow the rules and they have to do what their parents say and they have to do all of this stuff. And then, like you said, the reality is there's always choices and you get to affect those more than not. And that's really what collaborative problem solving is about, is in every situation, helping people recognize that you have control over what you're doing. And so that you might not be able to, there are certain things you can't control, but you can control your response, your choices, your actions, your feelings about those things.
Totally agree.
It creates our life.
You have complete control over your responses, and your responses can change and alter the outcome. And here's the coolest thing, and I know it's this like major secret that everybody seems to get to keep, but I'm going to blow it up right now, is that those responses that we make, if we don't like the outcome, next time we get an opportunity, we just change the response until we find the outcome we're looking for. So if it's not working, I'll give you an example. I used to have this dance when my son was a teenager, and every Saturday we would have this dance, and I would want him to, obviously, what am I going to say? Clean up his room. Yes, of course. And it was a mess. I mean, I know there was carpet in that room, but I hadn't seen it in years. I couldn't even tell you what color it was, because that's what a mess it was in there. And it drove me nuts because I'm a bit of a neat freak. And so every Saturday I would, have the conversation, go down the hallway, start working on what I'm working. And then I was like talking to myself going, I don't understand why he's so disrespectful. How can he live in that squalor? Where did this child come from? I swear he was switched at birth. I would have all this silly chatter in my head. And week after week we would do this. And one day I just walked down the hallway and shut the door. And I changed my response. And I said, I just keep the door shut. I don't want to look at it. If you want to live like that, God bless. As long as it's not in the rest of the house and it's just in your room, have at it. And I had a great day. That was like the first Saturday that I just went along, and I was just like, okay, this is good. This is working. And the funny thing is 3 changes and 3 outcomes ended up happening. One was, obviously, I had a really good day. 2 was, I knew that one day when he went to college, I would find out and have the pleasure of rediscovering the color of his carpet, which I did. By the way, it's blue. And actually, I no longer have carpets in my house, and it's wood floor, but at the time it was blue. And then the third outcome was, and don't you know, Cori, he started cleaning up his room.
Right.
It's like, I was like, really? That's what it took? Really? So I just kept trying different responses. So I would feel comfortable. And the outcome was okay for me. And then, it ended up being the outcome was great for all of us, because he ended up starting to take care of his room and do things, because I wasn't asking him to, quite frankly. So
right.
Interesting how that control, and the same with your high school and middle school girls, young women, there's a lot of stuff coming at them. And there's a lot of choices you have to make, and you have to, be kind to yourself. There are no really wrong answers. It's just we're making the best choices with the information we have at the time. And somebody said, I regret that I did X, Y, and Z. And I was like, why are you punishing yourself for that? Did you make the best choice you could at the time? And they said to me, I should have known better. And I said, if you knew better, you wouldn't have made that choice. And they just stopped in their tracks and went, I never thought about it that way. If they knew better, it would have been on the table for their choices. Right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I think, one thing we talk about is this idea of saying, well, what is it that you really want, or what do you want to see happen?
Right.
And sometimes people don't necessarily have that clarity, and certainly young people. But if they can articulate that, like, I want this person to be my friend, or I want my mom to stop nagging me, or what are you trying to say, Cori? Felt relative, but, and then really saying, okay, then what are you doing right now to get what you want?
Yeah.
And typically, I mean, just like you said, of like what you wanted ultimately was for him to clean his room so that you could feel comfortable in your own house, right? Or the way, however you'd articulate it, but that power of saying, oh, but you are actively doing something right now, and it is or is not getting you what you want.
Yeah.
And so then the next step is like, well, then what could you do differently? Just try something different. And then, like you said, this cycle of like, you try something new, and if it doesn't work, you try something again.
Yeah.
And getting people to see that there's always another way.
Yeah.
The first step is just recognizing that if it's not working, you have to try something else, or you're just going to getting the same result.
And when we're trying, and absolutely, we'll get, it's the definition of what?
Right.
So, insanity. So, when we're sitting there, and I love that you say, the what do you want part, because our society doesn't ask us. They tell us what we're going to do. And they tell us what we want, if you really think about it. And so when somebody actually sits there, and we are both coaches, and we ask our respective clients, what do you want? I know most of my clients, although they're used to it now, but when I started first asking those questions, there would be a stunned silence, because they didn't know what they wanted. They weren't sure what it was that they were upset about. They couldn't bring it down. And therein lies where it's important to have a coach, because we don't give you the answers. We coach you through. You already have the answers inside. You already know what you want to do. You just haven't focused in on it. And that's one of the things that we get to do, right, when we're working with our clients.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I couldn't agree more that, typically we're really good at saying what we don't want, but then it's so hard to articulate exactly what it is that we want.
Well, here's an aha moment for that is, in order for us to know what we want, we have to understand what we don't want. And that's why we have a lot of what I refer to as contrast, the negatives, the contrast, because we need to know, oh, I don't like that. I don't want that. I don't like chicken, or I don't like this, or I don't like, carpets, or I don't like whatever it is, to know that, okay, if I don't have carpets, what are my other choices? Linoleum, wood, there's a whole bunch of other choices. And until we know what we don't want, we don't know what we do want. One of the exercises I do, especially this time of year, I do a visioning, which is a goal setting process, and for the next year coming up. And one of the things is every time I do it with clients or a group of people, speaking engagements, I'm actually doing it myself as well. And so invariably, I'll ask someone to stand up and share what, if they would, what they're looking for. What are some of the things that they're writing down as their goals? And one day this woman stood up and said, I want to own my own airplane. And I'm like, oh, I want to own my own airplane. So I wrote it down on my sheet, right? And as I was going through my goals and setting them up for the year, going through the process, I looked at the airplane and I went, I don't want an airplane. I don't want to pay for a mechanic. I don't want to pay for a crew. I don't want to pay to have it in a hangar. I don't want to have to pay for the gas, especially right now. I don't want to have all that upkeep, that maintenance. I don't want to own a plane. I want to know someone who has a plane. And I wrote that down on my sheet. And sure enough, I have a friend who not only has a plane, but builds plane and flies plane. So I got, I ended up achieving my goal. But there was the difference. It sounded really good. But then when I really looked at it and analyzed it, it didn't work for me. So that's what I mean by you need to understand what you don't want before you really narrow it down to what you do want. And I think that's why a lot of the time, relationships and things like that, we really don't know what we want. And as we get older, we start figuring out, okay, through the dating process, okay, I do want this, I don't want that, right?
No, totally. I think, and especially young people don't often only know what they've experienced. So they're not even sure what you can have, right? And so then they're saying, well, I want to feel this way, but are not clear on what's making them feel any of the things. And so I think that's where I've seen a lot of really wonderful things happen through coaching, this value of just talking that through with someone, because I could.
And giving them the tools.
Yeah, they have the answers.
Yes.
It's just getting them to realize they're what they already believe.
And their own power. Yeah.
and their power.
Yeah.
Stepping into
And I think we all do that at any age, no matter what age we're at. We really have to assess what we want and learn those tools. And every age group has different challenges. It's almost like if you look at, a baby learning how to crawl, learning how to walk, they have their challenges at that level, and we all have our challenges at the level that we're at. So it's always a constant. We're always a work in progress, right?
Oh, yes. And, the moment we stop working on ourselves, then we're losing out on so many possibilities.
Yeah, ruh-roh. You are listening to Healthy Lifestyle with Lorianne. I'm here with Cori. We are going to come back and jump into taking risks. And what does that feel like? What does that look like? We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Healthy Lifestyle with Lorianne. I am Lorianne Casdia. Whether your goal is improving your health, increasing prosperity in business, developing a business and marketing strategy, nurturing your spiritual growth, you are in the right place. We can help you shift your mindset, harness your talents, remove resistance, and rise above your limitations. You will be empowered to create your desired reality as we guide you. The results are based on an approach of shifting mindset, achieving your goals in business through personalized strategy, and we can show you how to take your vision to the next level. Visit us at www.ldcstrategies.com. And if you would like to be a guest or lift up your business, product, or not-for-profit, or if you have a question or comment, we would love to hear from you. Please email us at healthylifestylewithla@gmail.com. That's healthylifestylewithla@gmail.com. Now, we're back here with Cori Solomon Santone. She is standing owner and CEO of Center Stage Solutions. And we were having this really wonderful conversation about the importance of having a coach and having someone to talk to help guide us through things that we don't understand. One thing, Cori, that, a little story, a backstory to my life, we only know what we know growing up. So we think in our families, that's how everybody's family is, until we go outside our families and learn about other people's families, traditions, things like that, which I always found very intriguing. So I found out about all these different religions, and I started learning about Buddhism and Hinduism and all these different religions. And I thought it was really intriguing to the point where, I was looking for that thread. Where's the commonality between all things like that? And I love when you learn about new things, because then you can choose to adapt it, not adapt it, enjoy watching it from a distance, or doing it yourself. So quick story, when I was young, in my house, both of my parents I mentioned were musicians, and they had a lot of musicians that would come over after they performed at this venue it used to be called Westbury Music Fair. It has another name now. I think it's Citibank or something. But it was Westbury Music Fair. They would come over and they would hang out at our house on the weekends. And I would have people there. And this is really throwing back. I'm really aging myself. But we was throwing back to like Lana Turner, Stephen Edie Lawrence, Tony Bennett, Lionel Hampton, a vibes player, Maynard Ferguson, a trumpet player, all these singers back from that age. They would be in my living room playing. I thought everybody's house was like that. So when I started telling my friends that, these musicians were in my house, they were just like, yeah, okay, that's happening. And I'm like, no, it really is. And isn't it interesting that I grew up in that kind of environment, whereas other people, wouldn't have that kind of exposure, and I didn't have exposure to other things, some challenges that other people were exposed to. So isn't that an interesting thing to just recognize, because we take it for granted, don't we?
Yes, everyone does, and I think that's part of the challenge of being young, is that you don't really understand that until, you get older and you start understanding that, like my parents were, they were the kind of people that always said yes to everything.
Mine too.
And it made me think that that's the way it works. That's how you can approach life. And then honestly, my husband's family, they were like, this is how we do things. We are workers. We're going to stay in this. This is how our life is going to be. And so just understanding when you start meeting new people and learning about all these new cultures. And I had the same thing. I very early on got to, move away in the summers and have these abroad experiences and learn about like, oh, people are doing it so differently. But that creates a mindset of, oh, there are just so many more options for things than I even realized. And so in a nice way, like, I think that's one of the greatest gifts we could give, our children and our friends is this idea of this exposure to there's a million ways to do everything. And so there's always more options. And certainly when people are looking at like, oh, I would want to do this in my life, but there's no path of getting there. It's really, I always love to tell people like, you just have to find someone who did that and then ask them how they did it.
Yeah.
And then you'll suddenly understand that there is a path. There's a pathway of getting there. And, we can get wherever we want to go as long as we first believe it's possible. And then we make choices that will create a path that makes that possible. And so, nothing is impossible.
Right. I love the quote by Muhammad Ali. He takes the word impossible and he just changes it to I'm possible. There's no such thing as impossible. So I love that quote. And we all have to take some version, some level of risk. And one risk to one person is totally, entirely not a risk to another person. But it's going outside of yourself, taking those little baby steps, and sometimes taking big leaps and just going for it, as they say. But taking risks, you articulated about taking center stage, and you had challenges and you took risks. What were some of the risks that you took, and how did you jump those hurdles?
Yeah. So, one pivotal moment in my young adult life was right outside of college. It's a big time in everyone's life.
Sure.
Like, what am I going to do? What kind of job am I going to have? And at the time I was graduating with a teaching degree, and I knew I wanted to do big things and see the world and change the world and, all sorts of things. But I didn't quite know how to do that or where to go. I just knew, again, like you said, knowing not what you don't want. I knew I didn't want to just come back home and live in my same town and do the same thing that I had already, lived and done. And so I found, I loved Jane Eyre. I was
Yes.
with, all things British at the time. And I found this teaching agency that placed teachers, over in England. And they didn't tell you any details. So you had to fly over to England. They would then give you the details of where these interviews were at, which could be anywhere in the country. And then you'd go on the interview, and then you hopefully would get a job, and then you'd live there. So they gave you kind of a month to do all these interviews, and then ideally you would then get a visa and through their company and so forth. And so I signed up to do that, and I think that kind of risk, I look back and I'm like, what made me think that I was able to do that? And honestly, the timing of it was September 11th. My flight was September 13th. And so I was packing my bags when all of this September 11th stuff started. And I think back, my parents could have very well said you're not doing this. This isn't happening. But they didn't. They were like, "This, if you want to do this, we will support you. You can do this." And, I flew to England. I had 5 people on my flight, this international flight. And then I got there. And I think one of the things that I always have found is helpful when you're taking these big risks is to find your people. Find people that can support you and can cheer you through it when you're doubting your decision. And I remember landing in England and being like, what am I doing? What is this going on? But then it completely worked out. And of course, every choice then informs your life. And, I had a wonderful year teaching in England, and it was crazy. I was teaching with sheep, wandering around on the playground, and I was teaching in this tiny little village school, but it taught me how to do so many things in education. And, now, when I was 20 years later and I'm opening a school based on differentiated learning and all of these really great concepts I got because really my first year of teaching was in a different country with a completely different approach. And it just was so valuable. But when we take those big risks, there has to be a moment of like complete just bravery.
Yeah.
You're just stepping into a decision and then you commit and you have to follow through. And I like to make these big decisions, and I also like question it, like, oh my gosh, should I do this? Should I do it? And that's when you have to call your people.
Yeah.
And knowing who those people are in your life and having them or creating them, through some kind of network it's such a powerful backbone to that.
Without a doubt.
Gets you to all of that.
Yeah, having community is a really good thing. And if you don't have community, having one or two raving fan cheerleaders. One of my girlfriends, Deborah, she's amazing and brilliant in and of herself. But she is a raving cheerleader for me. And half the time she doesn't even understand what I'm doing. Not because she's not smart. It's because, I haven't even told her half the things. And she's like, you go. She's just, just there. I always know she's going to lift me up and support whatever I do. And that's what you need to surround yourself with. We need to surround ourselves with high vibing people who are just really supportive and we are watching each other grow and succeed. Just like the 30 authors in Women Who Dream, which you can find on Amazon. That was absolutely a cheap plug. But we all are supportive of one another. And when one lady does something, we're like, okay, let's go. So proud of you. Congratulations. And it's really genuine. It's really, really genuine. There's plenty of room for all of us. There are so many people out there to serve that we do collaborate and work with each other. I look forward to an opportunity to co-create with you, Cori, because I think there are some things that I could bring to your school and your students and your girls that might be helpful and enhancing the already amazing processes that you bring them yourself. So, and I love the fact that you had sheep running around and do your adaptation capability. For me, that's magical when I watch people do the adaptation. We can adapt. We can transform if we're not resisting it. And when we adapt, it's so much nicer and so much more beautiful. Look at the experiences you have. And now you get to bring it back and share it with the people that you're teaching.
I agree. I couldn't agree more. And I love our Women Who Dream.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
And I would love to create things with you. And what I love is that, even though there's lots of overlap and similarities in coaching and consultants and things like that, it's really finding a great match for the tools that you need in that stage of your life or that moment. And everyone has a little bit of a niche of what tools are we really using in that moment, and what can we do? And so I use that when I'm working with nonprofit clients and executives that. Every nonprofit has its own unique challenges and certainly funding barriers and so forth. But it's about really looking at what's already there, and then I like to call them black holes. But it's there's missing information or something that's missing in either someone's belief or in the organization of you're missing this wonderful resource that you already have.
Right.
And you can put that into play. And sometimes it's good to just have an outside person seeing the same stuff, and helping you process.
Well, I think that's a really, really, really good thing to have. And the way I usually frame it is the corporation is in the pool swimming and keeping their head above water and dealing with day-to-day incoming things. We're up on the coping, looking down. We have purview to be able to look in. We have no attachment to anything. We don't have an attachment to the outcome. The outcome we want is obviously success for our clients, but we have no attachment to the individuals, and we don't have any predetermined ideas about anything or anyone. So when we're looking at something from the outside, or if anybody's looking at something from the outside, it brings an element that there is no way you could bring even if you're in your observer, there's no way you could bring, because you have other pieces of information that may lead you in one direction or another. So it's really important to get outside guidance, coming in and having outside eyes to look at your company, look at your not-for-profit, look at your programs that you're doing, and enhancing it by saying, hey, great job, but did you think of this? Or how about that? Or maybe we need to switch jobs with this person and this person. And what do you think about that? So these ideas are just, to bring them to the next level. Because sometimes in corporations too, they get stuck in a habit. And then all of a sudden they're out of business because they got stuck in a habit. Things like Motorola, they got stuck in a habit of delivering phones, whereas Apple got stuck in the habit of delivering equipment and tools that allowed our lives to progress forward. So they casted a net that was more universal, and they could change and morph and move, whereas Motorola was like, yeah, we just do a phone, So those are the differences, and overcoming those barriers in life is really amazing. And of course, you use collaborative problem solving as well.
Yes, I do. And that it's the same idea of like, what is it that's happening in the moment? What are you doing? Which is that rut that people get into,
right.
And sometimes can't even see as contributing to the outcome that they don't want, And so you have to change that.
It's like I've always done it this way. Okay, but you're stuck. So maybe let's try it a new way. Have you thought of looking at it a different way, right?
And a lot of times it's, people struggle to see that they're doing anything at all, and like that they play a role in it. They're like, well, this is happening, or especially in organizations of like, well, this is happening with the board, or this is happening with our costs or revenue streams and so forth. And so really getting them to say, well, you've made choices, or you are in a role. And by being in that role, you have a part that you're playing.
Right.
And so there are other choices that can exist. And, I think we so often, we have the tools that we would use and we need, and we don't always use them. Yeah. Right. And so, it's really just helping people like stay focused and tap into the network or the tools or the people that we already have. Partly I've had to do a lot of fundraising and in my life through, my jobs. And it was always surprising to me to hear people who were struggling to raise money. But then when you ask, have you asked these people in your network? Have you asked for this? Have you asked for what you need? And oftentimes the answer was no. But it's like, it's the same thing in relationships. Like, have you said, this is exactly what I want, and figured out how you can get there? And so often we just have to ask the people that are involved with clarity about what it is that we're trying to do.
Yeah, there's a great book about that, which is The 4 Agreements. And one is don't make any assumptions. That's one of the 4 agreements. It's don't take anything personally. Be impeccable with your word, and always show up the best you can show up as. So if you live your life by those 4 things, you won't get yourself into a rut, and you will have to ask because you can't make an assumption. So it really, really helps. What's your why, Cori?
My why. So honestly, my why right now for all of this are my girls. I have 3 daughters, and they've gotten older. They're 17, 14, and 7.
God bless.
And so in a nice way over the last, 10, 15 years, I just see them watching me all the time, and also experiencing life. And just like you said, it's a great outside perspective in some ways of seeing their lives unfold and seeing them unfold as these young women to say, oh, wow, I need to do this for them. I need them to feel the same way that my parents helped me feel, that they can do anything they want. They can be anything they want. But then it's not going to always be easy, right? And that there's hardship and that we can do hard things. And that's our favorite thing in our house. We can do hard things. And so when I'm feeling the most fulfilled is when like I hear them say things like that, like, oh,
yes.
I got this. I'm going to try this thing. And I'm like, oh, this is why I'm doing this work in the world. And to try to help, not only my girls, but then other girls and other executives and other women that I've been in touch with so many. I've been blessed to have been connected and met so many women and been in these youth development settings that, everyone's struggling with very similar things, on this spectrum. And so I love that I can just use, some of my experience and the insights that I've been able to take from these to help other people and get my girls to being their best selves.
That's beautiful.
Things work in the future.
So beautiful. Cori Solomon Santone, thank you so much for being on. You can find her at centerstagesolutions.com. You can also get an email to her at corisolomonsantone@gmail.com. All this information will be found associated with this radio show. So if you look it up, we can give that to you as well. In the meantime, I want to thank you for being on today. You are an angel. I love spending the time, and thank you for being a sister author with us. Very blessed to be surrounded by 29 unbelievably strong, talented, smart women. And Cori, you are definitely one of those. So I look forward to co-creating with you. Thank you all for joining us today on Healthy Lifestyle with Lorianne. I know you have a lot of choices. My heart is lifted that you choose to spend this time with us. Again, I want to thank our guest, Cori Solomon Santone. Thank you so much for coming on. And if you're looking for a business coach, accountability, strategy, direction, a sounding board, someone to help streamline your business or more, or you're not even sure what you want to do, what you want to be when you grow up, it's okay. Feel free to reach out to me at 516-983-3591. Let's see if it's a good fit. If it's not, I know so many amazing people that might be a really good fit for you, and I can certainly help you soar to success. Shameless plug, #1 international bestseller, Women Who Dream, can be found on Amazon with my name or for co-authors. You can go on there and find us all. You will love, love, love Cori's chapter. Thank you all for joining us on Healthy Lifestyle with Lorianne. Come and join us next Saturday at 3 right here on JVC Broadcasting. And you can follow us on iHeartRadio. Until next time, play a higher role, serve a higher purpose, show up for you, and show up big. Have a great day, everyone.